I'm going to let you in on a little secret. There are two things I absolutely, deeply love on this beautiful green planet of ours. One is Star Trek, especially like the first series, the original 1960s Star Trek, and the other is trippy science fiction movies from Eastern Europe. If only there was a way to combine these two experiences together, but wait, that experience does exist, that movie exists. It's in the dust of the stars, im Staum der Sterne. What is the story of this movie? Well, we're in the distant future in a post-capitalist society, obviously. Our space adventure, the spaceship Sinro and her brave and valiant crew have just ended a 6-year message to get to the distant planet Temfor. And why? Because they have received a distress signal. Please come help us at once as soon as you can. 6 years is as fast as they can. But when they get there, they are greeted very warmly, but they are told in no uncertain terms that they have made a mistake. No distress message was sent. Everything is peachy keen. Everything is super groovy on Temfor. The leaders invite our heroes to a very, dance party with lots of booze and all these things. Everybody has a great time, and they shush them on their way, get back to Earth. But something is not quite right on Temfor. There is something fishy going on in this planet, and could it be perhaps linked with the fact that there seems to be like two different races on this planet? And could it be that maybe there's a form of exploitation on this planet? There are mysteries upon mysteries, revelations upon revelations. Do check it out. All the mysteries will be revealed to you if you dare to watch In the Dust of the Stars. So why is it so good? The opening scene is very mysterious because everybody is in hibernation, kind of like in Alien. We have this strange computer voice which is counting down because our crew is about to land, but we don't know it yet. The atmosphere is set very early on and very powerfully so, and as soon as we arrive on the planet, we realize that something is wrong. And though the tone is, pretty light and there's some comic relief that doesn't work very well, the colors are very flashy, and the tone, the aesthetic in many ways of the movie is kind of kitsch. It works super well, and that atmosphere of mystery and suspense really sets in because we know pretty much from the start that something is wrong on the planet, but it takes us a long time, at least maybe 30, probably 40 minutes before we really start to understand what's going on. There are a couple of revelations which are very cool, and the visuals are very striking. I said it's kitschy. That is true. Like the space costumes has almost like a Star Crash quality, with the Caroline Munro movie from the 70s, which I love, like one of my favorite movies of all time. But that's not the problem here. It gives the movie a very classic science fiction atmosphere. Feels in many ways like a 1950s novel. I read the Murray Leinster novel not too long ago called The Black Galaxy. I liked it a lot actually, and it kind of has that space adventure feel. Part of the visuals reflect that feel and part of the narrative reflects that feel, but there are many very odd choices which really raise the level of oddness, and very successfully so, of the movie. I'm thinking in particular of one sequence. I'll give one example, but it's really cool. So eventually our space captain, she's a girl here, and she's invited to meet the leader of the planet. And when she gets there, she walks in the office, and there's a red wall. On that wall are boxes, and each box is a human head. But they're alive, they're talking, so it's just these heads. Maybe it's like the Space Council of the planet, but it has not quite a David Lynch feel, but certainly close to surrealist feel. It's very, effective. I absolutely love that little bit. And the movie is filled with nice visual, creative touches, lots of mirrors, like in The Third Man, if you like. Interesting composition, very cool stuff. Visually, atmospherically, musically, and as a narrative, the movie is extremely effective, and it really surprised me. I mentioned the Star Trek aspect. So why did it feel to me so much like old school Star Trek? One element of that is that we are, as I mentioned, in a post-scarcity, society, post-capitalist society, and the movie doesn't, press that point too much, but it is there. So I might hear you say, well, obviously it's an Eastern European movie, and it's propaganda. Yeah, I don't care about that. Let me be blunt. So what? I like that in those movies. I like that we are in a universe where people are no longer driven by profit and confrontation and backstabbing each other. Like, to me, that is a good thing. So where the producers or the state trying, manipulate the consciousness of people, well, so does Hollywood, Let's be frank here. Here, it works very well, and it is a very frequent theme in Eastern European movies, certainly in Soviet movies. But that's not the big Star Trek thing. What surprised me the most is that the captain of the ship, who's played magnificently well by a Czech actress called Jana Brejková, I think. Not sure, I don't know the pronunciation. She's very good. She played in something like 110 movies and TV shows, according to IMDb. She was also in Gentlemen, I Killed Einstein, which is one of those Czech time travel comedies. They seem to make so many. And she was also in Karel Zeman's absolutely brilliant Baron Brazil, also called Baron Munchausen, which actually seems to have inspired Terry Gilliam's Baron Munchausen quite a lot. If you've never seen a Karel Zeman movie, run straight away to watch them. They're great. And she was in one of those movies. So she's a very accomplished actress. And what gives it that Star Trek flavor? Well, she's very conflicted. A big part of the movie centers on the weight that being a captain has on her. So you might say on the surface, well, maybe it's a, like a sexist thing, but not at all. It's not because she's a woman, it's because she's a captain. And if you've seen, if you go back and look at the early episodes with Captain Kirk, or even the full-length version of The Cage, like the original pilot of Star Trek with Captain Pike, we forget just how much of the series, at least in the beginning, was centered on the weight of this captain, who, both Pike and Kirk, who have to deal with sending people sometimes to their death. And people do die on their ship, but every time it happens, it's a failure, obviously, and they're very conflicted about that, and just the responsibility, and also about the fact that they need to look strong. They need to make the entire crew feel united and confident in themselves, in the ship, in the captain. So actually, it's a lot of responsibility, and both in the Cage early pilot, the first pilot from Star Trek, and the early Trek episodes, that was handled very well, and that's the big Star Trek quality here. While it's not what we associate with Star Trek today, I can't watch the modern TV shows. Apparently, Brave New Worlds is pretty good, but whenever I've tried, it doesn't feel right to me. It feels like people trying to give the flavor of Star Trek, but they've lost the soul of it, is what it feels to me. And a big part of the soul of Star Trek was always, very competent people working together, which we kind of have here, and that very personal aspect of the captain, not personal as in, has love adventures and, romances of the girls, which does happen in the later seasons of Star Trek, but that's when they were kind of starting to lose a little bit in the narrative thread. in the early part, it's very much about this is a real human being in a very stressful situation, making his best, effort to do a good job and to be responsible for all these people, in deep space, and the most dangerous assignment like in the universe essentially, and that's what we have here, and I absolutely love it. Last thing I'll mention about the movie is just how much effort was put into making us feel that we're in the presence of not only one but two alien cultures. Like, they eat strange food, they listen to their own strange music, they have a strange way of sitting on very strange chairs, and sometimes for comedic effort, but mostly for very sound and interesting narrative reasons. The movie really stresses, but subtly so, stresses just how different all these things are to us and to the crew of the ship. So I haven't seen that so often, actually. Just again, how much time and thought was put into giving us a very different culture in many subtle ways, and I appreciate that a lot. And I mentioned like the imperialism, colonialism, it's not even a subtext, it's overtly that, but the movie did succeed in establishing pretty interesting power dynamics, and it works very well. And if there's one thing that is heavy-handed in the narrative, is the fact that there is a kind of a revolution subplot, and what's heavy-handed about it is exactly the same kind of heavy-handedness we have in every science fiction movie from the West, certainly the United States, that features a revolution. The evil oppressor caste and the downtrodden oppressed people, and they only need a spark and a charismatic leader or something like that to break their chains. And if you look at really what's being shown, there really isn't much of a difference between the revolution that is presented in a movie like In the Dust of the Stars, or something like Mole People, for instance, from the 1950s. And why is that? Well, topic for another day, but it might be because those are movies that are trying to tell you that they are on the side of revolution by co-opting the revolutionary narrative, actually. They're showing that revolution, and they're saying it's good. It's good to have revolutions, and obviously I'm on the side of revolution, but because I am on the side of revolution, well, that means that you should never have a revolution against me. Like, my power, my state power is revolutionary itself. It's the revolution in itself. It's the good in itself. So actually it's saying that it's for revolution, but the implicit message is that you should never have a revolution here. Otherwise, we might have to, adopt anti-terrorist measures or whatever. So it's very close narratively and thematically. It's two mirrors of kind of the same political narrative, I feel, between, for instance, the revolutionary narrative here and in American movies that do feature revolutions, which does come up from time to time. As I mentioned, there is a surprising amount of nudity in this movie. I did not see that coming at all. There's a lot of dancing, as I said, and I think this may be a German thing, because I also watched Raumschiff Orion. That is the German Star Trek from West Germany. I think there's only 7 episodes, but I love that series. It's in black and white, but if you don't mind that, and if you want to watch a really cool science fiction series from the 60s that kind of feels like Star Trek, but more more military, more adventure, but very smart, very interesting, Raumschiff Orion is that. But in the Raumschiff Orion, they have this very famous, or famous in Germany at least, very famous dance. And it's something that I do get the sense that I see that a lot in German movies, German science fiction movies or TV shows, no less. That dancing aspect. And I actually wondered, is that because as a culture they just dance a lot? It might seem far-fetched, but if you watch footage from like Oktoberfest or stuff like that, there's a lot of folk dancing involved. I don't know, I've never been to Germany, but I did wonder if that's why, the key to the mystery of why there seems to be so much dancing in German science fiction. But there's a lot of it here, and a lot of it is in the nude. I don't know what that's about, but it's about a naked girl dancing for 4 minutes. But the visuals are also great, the music is great, so it's very odd. There's also a comic relief aspect which I didn't appreciate as much. That's maybe like my one gripe with the movie, is that there's a more or less heavy-handed, comic relief character who does a lot of funny faces, if you like, almost like a Jerry Lewis. Or if you've watched Reptilicus, like the Danish or Swedish movie or something like that with a giant dinosaur, there's one guy in particular who's always making these horrible funny faces and pratfalls and all these things. He's not at that level, the comic relief here, but he did make me think of that guy in the Reptilicus. But thankfully here, the narrative arc of that character, even though it starts like almost cringy, comic relief, it is pretty interesting what they do with that character, and there is a redemption of the character and the way he's treated, like, by the story. So I did like that, and overall I was pleasantly surprised by that movie. I had seen one other movie by the same director, Gottfried Kolditz, his name is. That movie was Signals, a Space Adventure. I, liked it, but it was not memorable at all. In fact, I need to rewatch it because I've basically forgotten everything about the movie. And the other one, which I haven't seen, is called The Thing in the Castle. I'm still looking for that one. I've never been able to find a copy of that one. Certainly compared to Signals, that one, even though it has, cheesy aspects, it works very, very well for all the reasons I mentioned. The atmosphere is great, the music is great, the lead actress is very good, and all these things, like the classic science fiction element. It has a lot of things going for it, and for, a niche German science fiction movie, they're not renowned for their science fiction movie production, East Germany, though they have a few, but not many. That one was a very, very nice surprise. It is pretty easy to find a copy of this movie. There's a DVD Blu-ray that's out by Deaf Crocodile. I'm not getting a kickback here, I'm just mentioning it here because I checked their catalog and they have a very cool list of movies. In fact, if you check out my French channel, a lot of their movies I've talked about, like Zero Grad, Zero City, and a few others. They have a small but very cool catalog of science fiction movies. So good job, Deaf Crocodile. And if you want to hear more about the East European science fiction movies that I've talked about on this channel, check this one out.